Welcome to session 9, where today we'll be talking about the skill of positive intent and the power of love. We are now shifting into the executive state of the brain. We've spent several sessions building upon skills to get us to the very front part of our brain, that prefrontal of our brain, and where we can access life skills, these executive skills, these functioning skills that we all need as adults and as children need too, especially in the early years. So we are shifting to that executive state of the brain, talking a lot today about positive intent and really looking at just trying to see the best in others. I know for a lot of us that's hard to do, depending on the situation, depending on the day, depending on how triggered we are. But really trying to focus in on, what is it what is our intent? And looking at through the eyes of a child with that power of love, shifting from focusing on a child's behavior and looking at opportunities to teach and coach children through big moments. Big conflicts arise all the time. And it's really looking at a different perspective. At the end of this session, you will understand how we can use conflict as an opportunity to teach. When we're thinking about that skill of positive intent and that power of love, and we're going into really giving a base of what we're going to talk about today in this session, is we want to understand that children cannot do differently or behave differently unless they are seen differently. We're going to focus a lot today, not specifically on certain behaviors, but really understanding that, once we give a child an opportunity to try to do their best, and we go to that mindset shift that we've been talking about, kind of building upon as we grow in each session in our time together, learning that we as adults, as teachers, have an opportunity to, once we see children differently, then they're going to behave a little bit differently instead of judging their behavior, which is what we talked a lot about when we were in that emotional state of the brain. We're going to talk a lot today about turning that resistance in cooperation. A lot of times we feel as teachers, I know I did it very early on in my journey that I've been sharing with you guys when I was in the classroom, is a lot of the resistance was coming from my internal state, my emotional state that I was in, and trying to make the child comply. And my focus was not where it should be. It was a lot on the behavior. When children resisted, I fed into that resistance in a way that wasn't as positive or healthy in the culture and the type of classroom that I did want or desired to have. And there wasn't a lot of cooperation because it was a constant battle of back and forth because I did not have these skills. The skill of positive intent was something that I struggled with before conscious discipline. We're going to talk a lot about how we can practice effective ways to respond to verbal and physical aggression. We'll talk a lot today about when we're trying to coach children through conflict resolution. A lot of times we have that victim that goes straight to the bully and to say, look at how look how you made her feel in those particular things. And really it shifts to that more of that shaming of the child's behavior, and we're really looking at it from a different lens to say there's a reason why he or she may have pushed someone. There's a reason why they may have hit me as the teacher. What is it? Really trying to understand that and using it again as a platform, as an opportunity to coach and teach them through the steps to conflict resolution. So today in this session, again, we're going back to talking about the skill of positive intent and really looking at what Dr. Bailey says is that we're going to use teachable moments. When we have those challenging, aggressive children, that's our number one go-to as teachers, as providers, is to say, look, I'm going to look at this aggression in a different way, but I have to change my mindset. And I hope you guys are understanding as we've been building on these skills, how you can't use your executive skills and that prefrontal lobe of your brain if you have not practiced those skills that we've been building on. So again, composure, being calm for yourself, downloading that calm to others. Your internal safe place is important just as well as the kiddos. Assertiveness, teaching kids, hey, this is really what I want. There's no passive tone or aggressive tone. Using empathy with kids, which we talked about in the last session of, really trying to coach kids through big emotions. So really hoping that you understand as we move towards the end of the series, as we are getting to the end, how these skills are building upon each other. We're thinking about that power of love, it's just basically what it says, is seeing the best in others. As the adult, our goal is to accept that moment as it should be. We talked about that last session, about embracing that moment. When children are upset, offer that empathy with them to help coach them through those big moments. And for children, the goal is to learn how to offer developmentally appropriate empathy to others in itself. So we'll revisit the conflict time machine as we use that as a structure, also with teaching positive intent and conflict resolution. So just to recap here, remember, we're getting to that last part of the brain here. We're getting to that most important part, that executive state of our brain, where we have a choice to use and advocate for that pre-programmed CD-ROM that we've been mentioning when we were in that emotional state of the brain. And we choose which way we want to direct our behavior. As the adult and in the moment, depending on what situation we're in, when we're in that alert state, we are relaxed. It's a relaxed state where we notice things. And we've been talking about how important it is to notice our own emotions, notice others' emotions, notice our own thoughts. What is our inner speech saying to us? Is our inner speech as a teacher saying, this child's behavior is out to get me? Is our inner speech saying, I'm done with this little girl. I'm done with this situation. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Or is it a parent that you've checked out on because you just don't want to deal with it? We're really owning in on that pause. And those are the pause moments, or when we remind ourselves, our brain says, hey, we're in this relaxed alert state where we can notice things and notice these behaviors and notice nonverbal cues, because we know that is huge when it comes to shifting your perception from judging in behavior to noticing. So let's go to our pre-learning survey. Okay, we're getting to the very end of this series, and so we want to make sure that we're teaching everything that we can so that you guys can access these skills, hit the ground running, and as soon as you start to create that compassionate culture in your classrooms. So when we're thinking about executive state, we want to look at this. So again, just like the last session and on all the sessions before, on a scale of 1 to 5, what are your thoughts? Jot down on a piece of paper on a scale of 1 to 5. What are your thoughts? Misbehavior is a call for help and a teaching opportunity. On a scale of 1 to 5, misbehavior is a call for help and a teaching opportunity. You'll notice that some of these I've probably already answered. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, positive intent is a strategy to get others to comply. Positive intent is a strategy to get others to comply. Number 3, children cannot act differently until they are seen differently. Children cannot act differently until they are seen differently. 1 being strongly disagree, 5 being strongly agree, 3 being in the middle. Number 4, during times of conflict between 2 children, it is important to go to the aggressor first and offer positive intent. During times of conflict between 2 children, it is possible to go to the aggressor first and offer positive intent. And lastly, number 5, attributing positive motive. Attributing positivity motivates others' behavior, can transform opposition into cooperation. Attributing positive motive can transform opposition into cooperation. So resistance into cooperation. How do we feel about that? Can we do that with these skills? So we're thinking a lot about, that brain development piece, and going back to, okay, I can remember very early on when I realized, okay, positive intent is not really something that I'm very good at. This is going back to, even in my early years before I did get into the classroom. It was more when I see a situation, I view it as good or bad. And in all reality, that's the way I viewed it. And a lot of that has to do with the way that I was raised. So when you're looking at certain situations, depending on, am I triggered, going back to that trigger or that atomic nervous system that says, I don't feel safe, whatever is happening, right? There's a perception coming my way. So here, I just want to take you here. I want you to think about, look at this picture. What if you walked into class, or let's say you walked into work, or let's say this is your co-teacher, and you walk in and this is the face that you see. If you are not practicing that skill of positive intent and trying to see the best in others, then your perception may be, ooh, she's had a rough night, right? Or it could be, really, you could have at least showered, maybe not thrown your hair up in a messy bun. Okay, so you're rewriting that in your brain to think, okay, how can I shift this to seeing the best in that situation? How can I reword that? I'll never forget the first time when I heard Dr. Bailey teaching, how can we really grasp this concept of the power of love and thinking or trying to see the best in others. And she's always used the example of, the person who cuts you off in traffic. If the person who cuts us off in traffic and all of a sudden we are gripping the steering wheel and we're using some language or sign language or something, because out of our frustration and anger, we are making it up in our head that it's all about me. And that's the reason why that person kind of cut them off in traffic. So shifting to, rewriting the story in your head, making it up about that person in particular makes you feel a little bit better about yourself. Instead of saying, I can't believe they cut me off in traffic and calling them a name or whatever the situation may be, we shift it to, I'm just going to breathe. And I'm just going to say, maybe they're trying to get to the hospital in time because their daughter's having a baby, and just kind of rewriting it in your head because you've taken yourself out of the situation and you're making it up about someone else. You're making it up in your head anyway, and it's negative. So why not shift it to a positive? Here's another one, because I've seen this a lot in my house. What if you walked into your house and you see this, right? Wow, you guys really have made a mess, right? Or we could shift it to, and this is something that I've had to grasp in the very beginning, or I've tried to practice this in the very, very beginning of being able to use and practice these skills hand in hand in the home. A lot of my trainings and stuff were in the evenings in the very beginning of this journey. And so I would come home and this is what I would see. And so if I haven't practiced the skill of positive intent or trying to see the best in my wonderful family, then my perception would be, you guys could have taken the time to clean up this mess because now I have to do it. But instead, if we shift our mindset to, wow, you guys have had so much fun that you haven't had an opportunity to do the dishes. In all reality, those are things that would not be easy to me if I ever have never heard this, but that's something that I've had to do. I've had to retrain my process, my thinking process into going, these dirty dishes, they are not out to get me, and it's not about me. It's looking at this from another perspective to say, my husband's taking time to spend time with the kids and not clean up this mess after dinner, because it makes you feel better. Remember that, it makes you feel better. Thinking about that, looking at this situation, you see this, what is the intent? Is the intent to hurt each other? Are they playing with each other? Is it playful? Is it aggression? What is your intent? As teachers, as providers, as early educators, our intent is to teach. That's the number one thing, the number one goal. Our intent is to teach, and it's to teach with love, not to judge a particular or certain situation or a certain behavior. It's looking at from a different lens. Again, going back to this, and I cannot say this enough, and it's just a constant reminder that difficult children, they will not change unless they are seen differently. Okay. Very early on, we've talked about DJ's experience in his transformation. The sad thing about DJ's situation, DJ Batiste, is that he was not seen differently until he was a senior in high school. So yes, it can happen. Yes, a child's story can be rewritten. But the sad thing is that he was a difficult child and he was not seen differently till later in his life. So as an educator, that's more motivation to look at a child now in the early years to go, okay, this behavior, this family that you've been into that's maybe had some other challenging behaviors or whatever the situation may be, this will not define who you are. We have an opportunity as educators to see the best in every child, in every challenging child, in every difficult child, and look at them from a different lens so that they are giving an opportunity to thrive in society, right? I know children are resilient, especially in these times of this pandemic, and they are needing us more than ever to pour love into them and to see them differently so that they're given an opportunity to learn skills that they may not have. We have that opportunity. So we're thinking about, looking at what do we want to do with positive intent? We want to look at it as, again, it can turn that resistance into cooperation. How do you teach that? I've shared with you the book series. This right here is Schubert's book, Schubert Sees the Best, teaches the very same situation. It's more of in a classroom setting. You can use the Sophie Wants a Turn book that you can use for little ones where you're teaching how do we ask for a turn. It's not necessarily focusing on we need to share. It's look at him, turn and say, eye contact, say their name, okay? Can I have a turn, please? Let's practice. It's all of these things kind of coming into play. If we make up intents, just like I mentioned before about the person cutting you off in traffic, if we make up an intentions with negativity, we are putting ourselves in the middle of the centers of our brain. I have done that time and time again about certain situations. I've done that out of frustration with my own children when it has nothing to do with me. I make up the intent in a negative way. It automatically sends me into the lower state of my brain. And as a parent, as an adult, I should never be in a lower state than my children because 9 times out of 10, it's not going to turn out so well for anyone. No one benefits from that, either side. If we make it up positively, then here we are. We are starting to access the higher centers of our brain. We're talking about that executive state, which is where we want to be. The all-in goal and the end result here with all of these skills building is we want to access the prefrontal lobe of our brain. So those skills, access our brilliance all the way up at the top, that we can use those skills in any situation, not specifically in the classroom, but in life in general, through relationships with coworkers, significant others, your friends, your family. We need all these skills. If we make the intentions up negatively, this is what we do. We automatically label the core of that child as bad. There is no bad child, right? There are children who are missing skills. And we have an opportunity as providers, as early childhood professionals, to look at a child who maybe feels that core within them that someone has called them bad. Maybe it's their parents or family members or another teacher. And we look at them in a positive way so that we can help them have the core inside that says, I'm not bad, right? I am a good child. I'm just missing some skills. And what an opportunity that I have to be able to present this amazing training, this amazing professional development that you guys get to hit the ground running with these skills and cultivate a compassionate culture, a compassionate classroom, and shaping the future, right? Which is so powerful. It's just amazing. Let me share here. I really want to talk a lot about, and Dr. Bailey talks a lot about, the all-in result here, and that we're trying to do is we're trying to integrate the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. And it has to be done with all 3 of these brain states kind of intertwining together. And instead of me explaining to you this information, I figured You might want to hear from the expert. She explains it a lot better. So let me play Dr. Bailey's explanation of the difference between the right and the left hemisphere.
There's a difference between knowing and doing from the brain's perspective. Each of us has experienced this difference. Often we know to go 55 because that's what the sign says on the highway, but we do 70. We also know that if we're going to try to lose weight, if our goal is to lose weight, then ordering a pizza every day is not our wisest choice. So sometimes we can know better and do better, and sometimes we know better, but we don't do better. So what does that look like in the brain, and how does that relate to children? So if a child comes and their brain is connected and integrated all up like this, then the executive state gets to be the CEO of the brain. And we've talked about this. This is the boss of the brain. It gets to override the impulses of the lower centers of the brain. So if this is the boss of the brain, look what happens. So if the boss walks forward, says we're all going forward, then the brain goes forward. If the boss says, all right, let's go backwards, this way, the executive state, which says the whole brain is very, very integrated, is the boss of the brain. But what happens when the child is disconnected and the wiring between here did not occur because they did not get enough eye contact, touch, presence in a playful situation? Their brain looks like this. So what happens then is the executive state walks forward. Basically, all it can do is turn around and watch itself do stupid stuff. And everybody listening has watched themselves do stupid stuff. And they've done it over and again. Oh, no, Becky, not again. Here we go again. And you've done the same thing over and over. Now, the executive state also is the story-making part of the brain. This is where you get storytelling, you get to make up stories. So as you watch yourself do stupid stuff, you get to make up a story about why you did that. And we make it up usually because of someone else. So the only reason we're doing these stupid things is because of Robert, who's filming, isn't it? Exactly. It's Robert's fault we're doing stupid stuff, or it's my spouse's fault we're doing stupid stuff, or it's the children in the classroom driving me nuts, making me do stupid stuff. But what's really making us do stupid stuff is our brain is disconnected. And it looks just like this. Now, from this state, you know what to do. So in a child example, let's take this one. So I'm going to go up and say to a child, you just grabbed a toy from someone else. There was one toy and two of you, and you grabbed it. Now, what should you have done?
Share.
Share. So she knows that sharing, this is one person now. So with a child, they know what to do, but they not necessarily can do it. So here's what we often do. So when you just grabbed a toy from this child, there was one toy, you both wanted to play with it, and you grabbed it. What should you have done?
Share.
Share. So she knows exactly what to do, but doing requires this. Without this, you know, but you can't do. Often kids will know what to do. They know the rules. Let's go over the rules. What is their rule about this? Why should you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And they're just talking. We should do this because we're kind and helpful. We're going to keep the classroom safe. So they know all the answers, but they can't do the answers. And sometimes that sets us and triggers us because we're like, I know you. I knew it. I knew you knew better than to do that. So we get frustrated because they knew what to do and didn't do it. For a child to be successful, their brain has to be integrated. They have to have enough caring, enough connection, enough touch, enough safety for the brain to look like this. And then knowing and doing go together. So the further in our lives we know something, and over here we do something, the further apart knowing and doing, the less our lives work. The closer together knowing and doing is, the better our lives go. And we can do this, just to let you know, if we want to get our brain might come to work looking like this, and all you have to do is start condemning yourself. I'm too ugly, I'm too fat, I can't believe I took this job, this is the stupidest job I ever had. Then you disconnect your own brain, you lose the capacity to override your impulses, you do stupid stuff, you watch yourself do stupid stuff, and you say, see, I knew it was my significant other's fault, I never should have moved to Orlando. So that's how it works in an adult life. The same thing with children. Now, you can either condemn yourself or you can condemn others. You can say, look at that person. Aren't they ugly? Aren't they stupid? Aren't they fat? This is what happens inside your brain. Once again, your impulses then are free to do as they wish. And your knowing is just that. It's an intellectual experience and not a life achievement. So the same thing happens with kids. So if a kid says, you poo-poo head, you stupid butt, they do it too. If they're like this and go, stupid head, they do that. And we go, oh, you wanted to get her attention. You didn't know what to do. We put the brain right like this. Say these words, Becky, Becky, and tap me on the shoulder. And then, because we've connected their brain up for them, they can learn a new skill. Tap me on the shoulder, and there we go. So that's the story of knowing and doing. I hope it helps you understand this chapter. So keep reading, keep implementing, and have fun.
So there's no better way to put that together. So when we're thinking about when we offering the negative choices or that negative intent, the child has two choices. Okay. Again, we looked at it from looking at it from this perspective. I accept that I'm ruined and I'm destined to be bad. When you're thinking about, going back to a few sessions when I shared the Elijah's journey and Elijah's story and even DJ, these are the things that were, the negative intent that a child hears is that I'm just going to accept that I'm bad and I'm destined to be bad forever. I'm going to fight you, right? I will fight with you about which one of us is bad. So I'm going to go back and forth. Like I'm a pile of poo, you're a pile of poo. If I were to say you're a poo poo and I'm a poopy head and you're a poopy head, then we're all poopy heads, right? And what we want to teach through positive intent is we're offering that little seed of potential for that particular child to be seen differently. There's nothing more powerful in situations. If I've been in a classroom coaching someone, or even when I'm training adults, when I'm working in the correctional facilities, and if you got to think about from that perspective is that I'm in a room of moms and dads who have been checked out on since they were very little, where they've been labeled as the core, their inner core is bad and they are bad. And so they're destined to be bad. And so they live this life of destruction. And now I'm going to see them in the correctional facilities and I'm saying, no, you're not bad. You have potential. And looking at it from that lens, that I'm just planting a seed in them, but it just in a different phase of life. Where if they would have had someone plant that seed from early on, maybe they wouldn't be in some of the situations that they are in. So let's practice. We're again, conscious discipline is based on a lot of formulas to help teachers use these, and even when working with children, whatever your role may be, is coaching children through these formulas to help through that process. We're going to reflect back on the DNA process that we covered in the empathy, but we want to focus on that you wanted. Going back to that DNA process we talked about in the last session, where we describe what we're seeing, we're acknowledging what we're seeing. At the end of that whole process, when we're getting that prefrontal lobe, is we have to offer up a solution, because we know that in the executive state, that's our problem solving. That's where we want to cultivate that culture in our classroom, where we're walking around and we're saying, we're going to be problem solvers today, boys and girls. How can we be problem solvers? We offer positive intent when we see hurtful actions. We say, just like Dr. Bailey was saying, when someone's calling so-and-so a poopy head, oh, you wanted their attention and you didn't have the words to say, or you were hoping, right, that it should go a different way and you didn't have the words to say, or you didn't know how to do it. So let's practice, right? So let's try this. This is what this looks like. A child pushes to sit by a friend. If let's say that's our classroom and we see that, and we have checked out on this particular child, and we have had it all day long that this child has pushed his friends out all the way. Going back to accessing all of these skills and being in that prefrontal lobe as the teacher, as the coach in the classroom, is we're saying, oh, you wanted to sit by your friend Johnny, so you pushed Sarah. Pushing hurts. When you want to sit by Johnny, just tap him on the shoulder, tap Sarah on the shoulder and say, move, please. Okay. And don't end there. We want to use opportunities to practice. So we go back with, let's practice, and practicing a few times so that the child remembers, oh, that's what I'm tap him on the shoulder. Tapping on the shoulder brings that eye contact. A child yells, hey, butthead. Okay. Let's say a child says that to you the very first week of class, the very first week of school. They don't know your name yet, right? Oh, you wanted my attention. Oh, okay. Well, my name is Mrs. Mattingly. So when you want my attention, raise your hand or tap me on the shoulder and say, Mrs. Mattingly, right? Instead of saying, stop calling me a butthead. My name's not butthead. We're not using that as an opportunity to teach. Another one, a child hits a friend to get a red marker. A child hits his friend to get the red marker. As the teacher, we pause, we calm, we don't react in a way, we don't remove the child because they did something that's aggressive. We say, oh, you wanted the red marker, so you hit your friend. Hitting hurts. When you want a red marker, tap your friend on the shoulder, say his name, tap, can I have the red marker, please? If the child resists, says, no, I don't want to give the red marker, okay? When you're done, are you willing to give the red marker? Then you become the coach in between the conflict resolution. Do you see how important your role is between the child, both children in this situation? This is huge. Using conflict as an opportunity to teach. You know, if I could, again, I say this all the time, if I could go back into my classroom, I would be a conflict seeker all day long because now I have skills of conscious discipline and I just look for it, right? But looking for opportunities to teach and model these things for kids, right? When we have two children, we go to the victim first, unless there's a safety issue, unless the child is literally physically hurting another child or going to hurt another child or something dangerous is going to happen. And this is what we want to remember in this step, in this order. We want to use it again when we're thinking about that conflict situation. We have to be conscious that if we are triggered as the adult, we got to stop right away and practice our star for ourselves. A lot of times in dangerous situations or when a child is hurting another child, that may trigger you as the teacher. That may trigger your co-teacher or whoever, and make you, again, feel all the feels, right? And it may not be positive. So your role right away is to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm triggered, right? I'm going to star. I'm going to wish this child well. I'm going to tell myself, I've got this. I can handle this. Then I go to the victim and I say, did you like it? Victim says, no, I don't like it. Turn to the aggressor, right? You wanted to play with Sarah, so you pushed Johnny out of the way, right? And we're coaching. Hitting hurts. What can we do instead? Here's how we're cultivating a problem-solving world, right? We want that type of culture in our classroom. Why do we go to that victim first? Because when we go to that victim first, that teaches the child, that models for the child that we value healing, right? We're not about fixing. Being a teacher is not about fixing, right? And so when we go to that victim, it says, oh, we're here to help, right? Victim first requires 2 steps. Again, noticing. And right away, did you like it? So today, if you were to go out and be with children, that number one thing you want to remember is this: going to that victim and saying, did you like it? Just yesterday, I had this opportunity to do this. I was in a classroom observing a child and who had a little bit of aggressive tendency when things seem to be overwhelming for her. A lot of it in this situation is just kind of coaching her through social skills, that she's wanting to interact with other kids in her classroom, but she doesn't know how to do it in a healthy way. And a lot of times it becomes aggressive. So I noticed this one little girl, kind of a quiet, shy little girl, was building a block tower. And my friend, who I was hanging out with that morning, went over and pushed that block tower down, all the way down, with no words, and just kind of ran off. And the little girl that was building the tower just kind of like, her kind of head went down like this. And then she just started building back up again. Well, it wasn't, but another minute later, same child comes over, pushes the block tower over again. Again, the child goes like this again. So look at how beautiful this is. This was a perfect opportunity. Number one, to notice. And number two, go to that victim and say, did you like it when she tore down your block tower? And she was like, okay, well, come on, let's talk about it. Let's go to her and tell her that you didn't like that. So we use it as an opportunity to teach assertiveness. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it because it's very empowering for a child who may not have that skill of assertiveness even practiced or even learning how important it is, or it's been modeled for her. It gives her an opportunity to have a voice. Conscious discipline teaches you have a big voice, and it gives her a moment to go, hey, I didn't like it when you did that. But it also creates that opportunity for that other child, the aggressor, to kind of have a conversation about it. So after we worked through it, it wasn't but another few minutes later, and the tower was built back up again. And my little friend came over and she sat there and she looked at my other friend and she said, I like that. And didn't knock the block tower over. So we just, and when that happened, we celebrated that. We said, oh my goodness, you walked over to your friend when she was building the block tower and you told her that you liked it. That made her feel happy. And we used that as an opportunity to teach. We took conflict, we taught assertiveness, we used it as an opportunity to empower both children in the long run, instead of focusing on stop tearing the block tower over, go play with something else. We're cultivating that culture of compassion where they want to be with each other in different times, right? So here's what this looks like when we're thinking about helping the aggressor teach a new skill. You wanted is step one. When we say you wanted, it brings the eye contact. I'm not punishing the child for having a specific behavior. And then I follow it up with, so you wanted to play with the blocks with Avery. So you push the blocks down. Step three. You didn't have the words to say, or you didn't know what else to do. So you push the blocks down. You may not push the blocks over, right? Or you may not hit. That hurts, whatever the situation may be. Okay. Step five. When you want to play with Avery, do this or say this, just like in the example, tap him on the shoulder and say, may I play with you? So that's in that very situation. We're saying you wanted to play with Avery and you didn't know what to do. So you pushed the blocks down. When you want to play with Avery, just tap her on the shoulder, say, Avery, may I play with you? Now, the last step, let's practice. One thing I want you to remember too, when we're thinking about disconnected children, disconnected children, they are not going to be willing to learn new skills and problems with others. So they have to be, number one, you have to use these skills to help those children who are disconnected. They've got to feel loved. They've got to feel accepted. They got to feel a part of the school family. If they don't feel that, then you've got to go back to square one. You've got to meet those, the developmental question in that emotional state of the brain. If children do not feel safe in the survival state, if they do not feel loved and connected, they cannot get to that part of their brain where they can start to problem solve with others. With these children, it's a slow step-by-step process. Children who've experienced trauma, it is very, very slow. Why is it slow? Because you're building on these skills. You've got to answer safety and connection first. It is not going to happen overnight. That is so important to remember. These children it can't come right away. It's at the beginning of the school year and a new start of the school year, and 4 weeks in, you're getting a note sent home from the teacher about a specific behavior. And the end result is you can't build relationship and connection in 4 weeks. Needs a little bit longer, right? So remembering it's a slow rate relationship, but the power behind that is you're building on these skills of safety and connection. Speaking of DJ, I want to share with you this amazing video where he talks a lot about, hey, I led a life of destruction, a former gang leader, kicked out of every preschool I was ever in as a young child. It led to a life of destruction, but now I have a story. So here's DJ's story here.
preschool. I got kicked out of preschool. And I can remember, preschool, school was not fun for me. That's when I decided. This school stuff, I don't like it. And you know what my teachers did to me? They kicked me to the side. You know why? Anytime you have something that's hard to deal with or makes you feel uncomfortable, you know what it's easy to do? Get rid of it. Prime example. I've held guns, shot at people, been shot at. Not one time was I afraid. But if anybody come around that corner with a spider, I am gonna show y'all how I move. Spiders, I feel uncomfortable with spiders. Therefore, I push that to the side. They make me feel uncomfortable. I want you to know how important it is in a classroom for you to make your child feel comfortable and not pushed out. So, you know, I got kicked out of preschool. I can remember my grandma coming to get me, and she asked me, "Boy, how you get kicked out of preschool?" They didn't know me to a 4-year-old. I'm just, I don't know. But little did I know then, that was the start of a road of destruction.
So we do have a solution, and I encourage you, if you haven't listened to DJ's story on Facebook or YouTube, I encourage you to look it up. It's a lengthier video, but it tells his story, and so looking at it from that perspective is that he was seen differently, but it came a little bit in life, and to hear how sad it was that he was expelled in preschool at a very, young age. And, how many children has that been? How many adults are walking around here and that's been them as well? Where someone's not given them or seen them differently, not used the power of love, or what is my intent to teach? It didn't really look at it from that way. When we're thinking about structures, this is my favorite part because these are things that you can use in the classroom that are so helpful. I have shared with you a couple of videos on how we use the conflict time machine, conflict resolution time machine. Again, I encourage you to look up all kinds of videos on how to use that. I know it's kind of hard in a pandemic right now to be able to use these types of structures because you're going to, all in all, conscious discipline really promotes, closeness. Right. And this particular structure brings that element of closeness in. So there's ways to adapt it. I know Conscious Discipline has come out with a more of like a smaller version where you can actually like walk it through with your fingers instead of having the kids together. Or you can use it for your own personal use because, let's be honest, even as adults, we have conflicts that need to be worked out as well. But just as DJ said, he gave a great example of when we're thinking about him pushing spiders to the side, I just don't deal with it. So really, that's just a great reminder that, if conflict is something that you particularly avoid, then you're not going to be able to practice that coaching piece with conflict if that's something you're not used to. So if that's you, that's okay. I understand that. I know conflict can bring, especially with other adults, with anybody, but significant others, whatever the case may be, a lot of times, conflict brings up a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions, and we just push that to the side. So am I telling you to today put your conflict cape on and go deal with conflict? Maybe, because now you have skills that are going to go along with that, even using these skills with adults. Like, I'm thinking like my husband specifically, I don't like it when you leave the dishes in the sink, or I don't like it when you, true story, I don't like it when you eat your toast and there's breadcrumbs all over the counter and you don't pick them up. I don't like that. Well, if I just left it like that, I'm not giving a solution to him. And he's a grown man, he's an adult. That is a true story. And he gets better with it, but there are days where it sends me to another place. But thinking about what those structures do, that brings in that it gives the victim and it gives the aggressor both an opportunity. A lot of times we have questions come up that, do I just stop there, let the victim say what they need to say? No, we got to flip roles here because the aggressor has something to say as well. So I encourage you to go on to Conscious Discipline's website and really kind of look at how we can play that into role. We have both kids on one end and they're kind of walking through those moments together and really wishing each other well and saying, hey, we can do this. We're in this together. Celebration centers are huge. Celebration centers is a structure that goes beyond celebrating the birthday. I know a lot of times kids go through big moments, and a lot of times we're just celebrating the small ones like a baby or a birthday, but taking it a step further and maybe celebrating a strength or an accomplishment, or like a new baby that's coming into the home, or maybe a child's mom who graduated, got their GED. Let's celebrate moments like that. Let's put that in the celebration bucket. Think about that piece, what that's going to do for cultivating just that family engagement and having your parents feel a part of the family, the school family. Also, here's a structure here when we're looking at kind of implementing these skills in the home. Where do we put those moments where we celebrate big things? Is it in the kitchen? Is it in the living room? Do you have a dining room or an office space where we celebrate big moments like that? Really using this structure to kind of cultivate all of those things. And we're thinking, this is the positive. We're seeing the best in others. A child loses a tooth. Boom, let's celebrate that. These are just examples. And you can Pinterest all of these ideas. There's really good ideas on Pinterest on how to use this or what this may look like. I've seen like a shower caddy that's been used before. That's not really expensive, where you can use that in your classroom as well to use as a celebration center. So as we're wrapping up this session, and we're shifting into the last session for the next time that we meet again, I want to just kind of take you to this place. And I realized that last session I accidentally typed in here on my PowerPoint the wrong commitment, but that's okay because we're going to use this one again. So this is the commitment that we had as last session, but we're going to keep it again for this session because I feel like this is just so big and it's so powerful for where we are right now as we're heading into the end of this and wrapping this series up. So if you're willing, put your love glasses on here. If you're willing to take responsibility for your choices, because I understand that when I choose to believe others are making me behave in a certain way, what happens? I give my power away, my body stress, and I blame others for whatever the situation is. I'm going to challenge you until I see you again, or just challenge you just for the next month or so to really catch yourself in moments where you have blamed someone else for your upset, or the person who maybe is walking in the grocery store, maybe has their hair up in a messy bun or something. And instead of judging that person by what they're wearing or what their hair looks like or whatever the case may be, maybe shifting that mindset, that thought process in your mind to more positive and think, she's just a mom who's just like me, or, who has struggles just like me. Right. And, I wear a messy bun too. Right. And so we're all in this together. Or it's looking at a situation of maybe a coworker at your work that maybe comes in, just distraught, or they're just lazy, and your focus is lazy, lazy, lazy. How can you see them in a different sense, in a different light, instead of punishing them or blaming someone else? How can we shift that? So if you're willing to take responsibility for your choices and understanding, quit thinking that someone else is trying to upset you or out to get you. Quit stressing your body. Take your power back. Stop blaming others, right? And to look at it from this lens and try to see it from a different perspective, right? That all children have ability in challenging behaviors, difficult behaviors. Disconnected children are the children who need us the most, right? Using it as an opportunity, right? Plant that seed of potential. So if you're willing, Put your love glasses on and plant those seeds of potential. I'm willing. Next session will be our last session. And we will be talking about that power of intention, looking at mistakes as opportunities to learn. We'll be talking about natural consequences and logical consequences and looking at it as cultivating that inner sense of peace and problem solving that we've been building upon. And I'm so excited to share that last session with you and talk about some really cool structures. Again, we'll look back into that time machine more in depth and talking about how we can use opportunities to teach and focus in on not focusing on the mistake, but looking at it as an opportunity to learn something. So until we see each other again, I wish you well, and I will see you for the last session. Have a good day.